Oh yeah, I go live to tune my guitar. Oh yeah. Thanks for showing up. Oh yeah, just hit that thing. It sounds like it's basically in tune. Yeah, when I strum this thing, this $15 guitar, it sounds in tune. A while ago I bought a Taylor guitar, but it's too nice for me to play. So I got this cheap Chinese piece of junk in the We Care thrift store one day. And the baby sings, and this baby sings like a boss. And if I break it while I'm playing, if I drop it on the ground, it's not a really huge loss. 'Cause I'm kind of a cheapskate at heart. I don't feel like I deserve a really great guitar. And I'm happy spending $15 on a Chinese piece of junk, 'cause it stays in tune. And it doesn't make me feel like I'm rich, 'cause I really don't deserve that. Really don't deserve that. And a $15 guitar is good enough. But I still keep the Taylor under my bed, just in case. Maybe I'll hit it big and I'll feel like I've grown into it. Okay, that song just fell apart. How you guys doing? Good evening. It's really, really important that you are all here for that. Especially the tuning part. Hey Hugh, hey Karen, hey CM, Stiegelman, Family Farm, Carla Layla, Heike Helmstein, Jordan Stamps, Daniel, B. Kai Hut Farm, aka Jeff S. Wow, that is great. Don't eat the foxgloves. Why not? Why not? Trump won. That's the name of the guy. I'm just saying his name. Don't ban me, YouTube. Jennifer, Gersh, Tim, Karen, Earthling Drew. Hey, Alan, Nora, Lisa, Sheila Wheeler. Oh, I love it. Jessica, Beth Depot Jackson, Cat's Crypt, Hearth, Dynasty 3. So how are you guys doing? Katie Ann, Skynet Banana. Hey, Donna. Hey, Colleen. Donald. Ginger. Ninja. Man, there's a lot of folks here. If I missed you, I'm sorry. Zachary. Carolyn. Okay, I think I got it. So, hey guys. Colleen, welcome to my channel. Glad you're here. Vintage Living Homestead, the first live. Well, I'm glad you're here. So usually we have these live streams, and they're very, very serious. They're very, very structured, and we definitely don't go into digressions. And I very, very rarely sing the comments. Very serious. Gardening is a very serious topic. If you watch gardening channels, you'll rarely see anything that isn't serious. Hi guys. Today we're going to look at our broccoli. It's really doing well this year. Our broccoli was boring last year. It's boring this year, but it's doing better than it was last year. Let me show you another boring thing. This is compost. We compost, and it's boring. And please like and subscribe. Now, so we don't do that here too often. Occasionally, I get boring. But it's usually like a long shot, and I'm being deliberately boring, right? So like when you do a really long shot where it's kind of getting to awkward levels, really long shot, usually really artistic, rule of thirds, you know, that kind of a thing. Sometimes I will do these long, painful shots because once my brother-in-law had me watch a movie, and it was called Schultz Gets the Blues. And it was like a winner of the Independent Film Festival or whatever. And it's just this like sad movie. This German guy, really, really long shots of this German guy who likes blues music or something, and he finally gets to meet some like people and play blues with them, like actual black people like they didn't have in Germany or something like that. And they get together and they play the blues, and it's like he has this awesome experience. And it's like he's just, you know, but it's like really, really long, slow shots. Like he's riding his bicycle and he comes up to a train, and then you have to watch the entire train pass. You see, he has a really sad life before he gets to really play the blues, and it's I don't know, it's terrible. But occasionally some part of that got into my mind, and I said, I just want a little bit of Schultz That Gets the Blues type of a shot here, you know. So anyhow. Nice to see all of you guys. Do I human manure compost? I have in the past, many times. Schultz gets your blues. It's like Schultz gets the blues. I think that's what it's called. So, Schultz gets the blues. Anyhow, yes. So, welcome. Actual content starts here. Oh, wait. Actual content starts here. We have to have the opening music. I went to see David the Good. We listened to Portishead, and we drank raw milk. It's for pets only. Only your pets are allowed to drink the good stuff. But I stole it from the pets. Anyhow, let's talk about the best gardening method. What is the best gardening method? What would you say is the best gardening method? I'm gonna just let what is the best gardening method? I'm watching the comments here. There we go. Wow, that's great. Okay, we're getting good. We're getting some good answers here. Okay. I'm gonna back up here. Let's go through them. Throw it on the ground. All of them. The one you do. The best gardening method is just do it. Throw. No-till. The method which keeps you consistent. Guten Abend. I don't know that one. The one that grows you enough food that you don't die. Okay, Jen, that's my kind of garden here. There isn't one, Donald says. The one that worked, Karen says. The one that gets the calories from the earth. Whatever feeds your family the most, the quickest. All methods combined. Seeds and dirt. The one that works for you. Monsanto seems to have it down pretty good. Am I right? Am I right? Am I right? Whatever works in my area. I like to combine all of the garden methods. Every single one. Permaculture, the puts food on a plate method. Growing as much as you can in your space. The one that works. The best gardening method is the one that works for me in whatever year it is. Having lots of smart children. Yeah, that works. The one that works. Permaculture. Tim says, I am too inexperienced to comment. Man, I love honesty. Low till. Best gardening method is whatever works. Ginger Ninja says, but depends on your individual situation, really. Catholic Before American says the Pete Canaris way. Look, normal people can't garden like Pete Canaris. He is Pete Canaris. He looks at the garden and the plants grow themselves. I mean, you can't look at... Yeah, it's certainly the best, but I'm talking about, like, the best for us, mortals. Whichever one works for you. The best gardening method is the one where you get a harvest. The one that works for your situation and climate. What lever works for you to have food that is not processed? The best method is the one that works for you. Think for 2 seconds and then just dig. What works for me may not work for you. The do something method. Whatever grows. I do a no-till and try to follow your lead as much as possible, Deb says. The David the Good method. The best we could do. Guten Abend is good evening. Oh, I'm sorry. Guten Abend. Hopefully I said that right. Tater said the method, a tiller can run down the rows and get rid of the weeds. Okay, yeah, so like wide spacing with the tiller. Florida survival gardening method. Serious, anything that includes compost and worms. Put a picture of Chuck Norris in your garden to deter predators and bugs. Okay, so yeah, just watch YouTube videos all day. I think that's what a lot of people do. All right, so the best gardening method. Now, I would say that, you know, the best gardening method, the one you actually do, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good answer. The one that gets food on your plate, the fastest, the easiest. In the past, I would generally answer the most food for the least amount of work, but that is not always the best answer. There's kind of a spectrum of gardening, from fruitfulness to like complete conservation of the wild and just foraging, right? So fruitfulness meaning like get the most yield possible, but fruitfulness is too nice of a way to say that. So let's call it extractive. So you till under your lawn and you hoe all the weeds and you maybe throw down some 10-10-10 and you get a yield. This can be good for a short-term thing, right? When the pandemic hit, what are you going to do? Oh my goodness, I'm just going to grow whatever I can. I need food. I want food in the ground just in case it gets really bad. Things get rough, let's just get what we can out of the ground. You're not thinking long term like, will my ground get eroded, or will I kill the soil life, and over time will I destroy everything, etc. On the other hand, you may just say, okay, well, I'm just gonna forage for food because I don't want to disrupt. I would like to walk lightly on the earth. I do not wish to disrupt the animals. The animals and I are friends. The fungi and I are friends. You may not be fruitful at all in that case. You might just get what you can get from, you know, I'm gonna eat shoots and berries and nuts and maybe I'll eat some grubs from a log because I'm starving. But you can really, I mean, you could grow huge, like, baskets, barrels, buckets, truckloads of food by simply tilling the entire lawn under and growing in rows and throwing down chemical fertilizer and spraying malathion, right? You could do that. Most American farming, most big commercial farming is just a barrage of chemicals and a grinding of the soil over and over and over again. Just blast it. We can't wait for it all to dry up in the sun. Let's blast it all with herbicide and then harvest the grain out of it. Whoa. Now, obviously, I don't like that. And that's not good stewardship. I don't like it when you have any poisons. So let's move away from round up everything, blast malathion, and use nothing but, you know, chemical fertilizers. Let's move a little bit more towards sustainable. A little bit more towards regenerative agriculture. A little bit more towards, okay, semi-organic or whatever. I would say that'd be the extreme spectrum. You use every chemical you want to. You basically just take what you want out of the earth. If you move over a little bit, you get to the victory gardening style. And you may be a little more cognizant of the fact that there are bees and ladybugs and worms, and maybe even you care about the fungi and the bacteria. Maybe a little bit. But you go and you till your space, and you might use chemical fertilizers, but you don't want poison on your food. Chemical fertilizers are not the worst thing in the world. I'm not particularly concerned if I found out that somebody had used triple 13 to grow the potatoes that I'm eating for dinner. I'm more concerned if I find out that they were spraying paraquat or 2,4-D or glyphosate or that kind of thing. The elemental salts that are going into the ground may not be the best for the soil life. It may not be the best for nutrient density, etc. But it's not like downright toxic. The plants take it up and they use what they want to use. It's not great, but it's tolerable. And if you were in a situation where you needed to get food, see, a lot of us are really soft. We're used to just being able to buy what we want, right? I'm just going to go buy bagged mushroom compost, and I'll go buy blood meal, and I'll buy bone meal, and I'll buy kelp meal, and I'll buy azomite, and I'll buy neem oil, and I'll use this oil, and that oil, and this thing, and I can do an organic garden. But you don't really have to be all that productive, and it doesn't have to make economic sense, because let's face it, we have more than we need. We're not like starving. Your options start to narrow a little bit when you can't just go and buy all that stuff. So if you can go and buy everything, you buy cedar boards and you do those beautiful raised beds. You buy, artisanal gardening tools. You buy all of these organic amendments and all of these organic treatments, and you try to do all that stuff. That's fine. But it's kind of soft, right? And your yields don't have to be that much. You might just be getting some peppers and some carrots, a few eggplants, some beans, enough to enjoy a few salads, enough to enjoy a bit of food. But then you look at those folks next door, that old couple, they get their tiller out there in the spring, and they wave over the fence to you, and they're running the tiller. And you look and you go, wow, look at them tearing up the earth. And then they mark out their 3-foot wide rows, and they keep that bare soil in between, and they throw down the triple 13, till it under. Put in the rows of potatoes, put in the rows of beans, put in those watermelons, put in the Crowder peas, whatever, right? You got all of these long rows, and you're like, that is not what I see on Pinterest. That is not what I'm seeing in this intensive gardening book that I'm reading. That is just like sin farming, right? But they pull in tons of stuff. Jars and jars of beans. My great-grandpa had a row garden that was probably 1/4 to 1/2 of an acre behind his house. And it was in that glacial, rich, clayey soil of upstate New York. My great-grandpa, when I was very little, I visited him, and I saw that garden, and I thought it was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen in my life. I was probably about 6 years old. And they just had jars and jars of beets. They had lots of potatoes. They made their own jams. Carrots. Rows and rows and rows and rows. And they canned it. They had the shelves of cans, of jars full of stuff that they had jarred up. Unbelievable. Huh. Way more productive than some of our little itty-bitty perfect organic gardens, which are, good for our consciences or something. It gets food out of the ground. It still is kind of on the extractive end of the spectrum, though. He had been doing it for a long time. They used to keep cows. I imagine when he had cow manure, he probably put cow manure, which would replenish the soil. Probably must have been pretty balanced. He put lime out there. I don't know if he used chemical fertilizers or not. I reckon they probably used a lot of cow manure because he was an old school gardener. But it's hard to get that good cow manure anymore because often it's contaminated with long-term herbicides, which will absolutely destroy your garden. Is that the best? Well, it's made him a lot of food. Let's move a little further over. A little further over, you might just plant nothing but natives. I had somebody tell me they were taking everything out of their yard except for the natives. Well, wow. Everything. So, what about the peaches? What about the citrus? What about pretty much every vegetable except for, sunflowers, pumpkins, corn? Let's see, what was native to North America? But even more than that, what was native to Florida? What was native to Florida that you could eat? Man, there's not a lot. Just natives. Is it a great wildlife habitat? I don't know. That original ecosystem is long gone. Is it productive? No. Not really. It's not, there's a virtue signaling sort of a thing that goes on when you have so much. You're so wealthy without knowing it necessarily, that you can afford to do things that don't make economic sense, that don't bring food in for your family. Where you just, the ultimate in this, right, which would be the worst of everything, would just be a great big lawn with a couple of dogwoods in it, or maybe some azaleas. You have nothing productive. You don't even have to grow any of your food. That is far away in some great big giant farm which is tilling the ground, so you can eat Doritos while you watch Netflix. Your food is completely outsourced. So, some time ago, I kind of looked at the row gardeners with their 10-10-10 and their malathion and their Roundup and stuff as sort of like, golly, that's dumb. I don't like it still, but at least they have relocalized their food supply to a certain extent. At least they are growing their own food in the backyard instead of having it shipped in from 1,600 miles away. And they're probably using less poisons than some of those big, gigantic monoculture farms use. And they're at least outside in nature. I would like to see them move more towards the let's not kill the, pollinators end of the spectrum. But at least they're growing their own food. So what is the best gardening method? I would analyze gardening methods according to a few criteria. Does it leave the soil better than it was before you started it? Nothing that we have is really ours. There is a hymn, "This is my Father's world." You're lent the ground that you have. I think it's acceptable when you are hungry, when you are worried, to do some extractive farming, right? You forgive somebody more readily for stealing bread than for stealing a pair of Nikes. It's a little smash and grab on the soil, right? You may till the area under and do whatever you can to get food out of it because you just need that food. There's time for that. And it's good to know how to do that, and it's good to know how people did that sort of thing. But there was a lot of farming that took place as people really, really needed food and really wanted food, and they moved westward across the United States. The settlers moved out, and they tilled areas that are still wrecked to this day. There is an area in Georgia that was tilled up. I believe it's called Providence Canyon. And they decided to plant cotton in an area with thin soil and with some slope to it. And the area, they cleared the trees and tilled it, and the ground got rutted out, and now it looks like a series of twisted canyons with big gaps going down into the ground. It looks unnatural. It looks like something you'd see in the Wild West, like Grand Canyon area. It's gone. The soil is gone. The Dust Bowl. Let's cut down the prairie and till it. Well, there's not a lot of rainfall, and there's some super deep prairie grasses. The soil there was so rich, you could just, stick a broomstick in it and grow a tree. But when you cut the grass and you turn the soil over, and it gets hot and dry and a little bit breezy, suddenly soil starts to go away. You lose feet of soil. They lost feet of soil. It's gone. That is extractive in a very bad way. That's a bad accident. And a lot of those folks probably had no idea. They'd not grown in that kind of situation before. If you grow in an area with high rainfall, you could till regularly. You have rich enough soil that sticks together. You could till and grow and grow and grow and grow. You take the same techniques and apply it to the wrong climate, the wrong soil. If you take out the trees in a specific area, if there's enough slope, if the slope goes like this and you cut the trees down, when water starts rushing downhill, it may take all of your soil and put it down into a river. It may put it in your neighbor's yard. I had a garden in my backyard in Tennessee that I worked really hard deep mulching for some period of time. And then there was a flood. And the drainage ditch that ran through the middle of the backyard overflowed, and there was a couple of feet of water flowing through the backyard. It took all of my soil work, years of soil building. It washed away my landscape logs. It tore out all the humus I'd built. And that Monday, I put the house up for sale. After that weekend, I put the house up for sale. This is not a place for me to garden. It's terrible. Wrong place. So, what's the best gardening method? First of all, I'd say, try to conserve the soil. Try to leave it in better condition than you got it. Remember, it's not yours. And I don't mean that in some sort of mystical way, like it belongs to the world, it belongs to everyone, the soil is everyone's, No, I mean that like God is watching you. Take good care of his stuff. It's his stuff. And I have not been the best at this. I have done gardens that have left the ground in worse condition than it was before. But you have to kind of live and learn. And when you see that you've got ruts through the garden, you're doing something wrong. You better change something. So leaving the soil in a better condition. As best as you can. If you get more roots in the ground, you get more sugars pumped into the ground. You may actually be able to build topsoil. If you are composting and chopping and dropping, if you are making biochar, if you are building up the soil life, it gets better. If an area is supposed to be a forest, and you cut all the forests down, and you plant grass, what happens is when you leave and you stop actively managing, cutting, fertilizing that grass, etc., the forest tries to come back. So if you know that you're in kind of a forest climate, it might make sense for you to just plant a food forest. So you're selecting out species instead of maybe just scrub oaks or pines or hollies or whatever naturally come up in your area. You might try adding some chestnuts, some pecans, or some walnuts, black cherries. You might add elderberries. You might start to build something that is better for animal life and for human life and is going to last a long period of time. So, moving more towards the improving, making better. Every time you plant a fruit tree, you're looking a little further into the future. It's more valuable. But we have these problems with picking something that we think is the very best gardening method and then attempting to apply it to all situations. So people have told me deep mulching is the very, very best gardening method. Wood chips are it. Wood chips are the best. Look it up. Wood chips. Okay. I have used deep mulching and wood chips for a very long time. As a matter of fact, I had a deep wood chipped garden that was washed away in that flood in Tennessee when I lived there. We had terrible problems with snails and slugs in the second year, just destroying our stuff. We had some really nice tomatoes and lettuces that we were growing. It was a beautiful, cool spring, but not freezing, and man, the stuff was growing so good. And then we had the most unbelievable slug infestation. The soil underneath was great. It was full of humus. It was rich. It was spongy. We barely had to water, if at all. I don't even know if we watered. We often, I think we just watered when we transplanted stuff. It was so squishy. It was full of water. It was perfect for snails and slugs in that backyard. So then we had to go out there and try to figure out how to kill the snails and slugs. Beer traps, catching them at night, flipping over boards to try and find them underneath, that sort of thing. I have also grown cover crops, tilled a cover crop under, and then planted row crops on top of it, and not had any slugs. And I got food out of the garden, lots and lots of food out of the garden. It doesn't build the soil as well, but it's a different tool for a different time, for a different reason. I found that the deep mulch was fantastic for establishing perennials. So if you're putting in fruit trees, the slugs and snails don't really matter that much. If you're growing a bed of lettuce, it absolutely matters. If you want to direct seed, if you direct seed into a deep mulch garden, for me, I've had all kinds of problems with stuff coming out of the mulch and chewing it to pieces. Cutworms and whatever other bugs are living in there. So, is the deep wood chip mulch the best garden? No, because it doesn't work in all situations. So let's look at square foot gardening. Really popular. Best-selling gardening book of all time. Over 2 million copies sold. It's probably twice that now, but that's what my old copy used to say that I had 10 years ago. Can you get vermiculite? Can you get peat moss? Can you make enough compost to get that perfect Mel's Mix soil? If you can, it's a very productive system. It's really nice. Can you get the pressure-treated wood for the sides of it? Lumber's getting kind of expensive. So, we tried it. A lot of times when people comment, they're like, have you ever tried? Or, you should look up. Trust me, this is what I do. It is maybe 1 out of 100 comments where I go, oh, interesting. Maybe 1 out of 1,000. Interesting, I haven't thought of that before. That's interesting. It does happen, but I have been reading and writing gardening books and experimenting with methods for a very long time. So we simultaneously were growing in John Jeevan's double dug bed, biointensive beds, at the same time that I was doing square foot garden beds as an experiment, and we were deep mulching, and we were intercropping cassava and sweet potatoes as an experiment, we were stacking up piles of our compost, all of our kitchen scraps and garden waste onto empty garden beds, like really tall, and letting it rot down and then planting into that. We were also growing row corn unirrigated. This was all in the same year. So all these different methods and things, we're going to trial this and trial this and trial this and see what works. And I could say that square foot gardening worked quite well. The John Jeavons method worked pretty well. It actually required less resources, but the tight spacing didn't work that great for us because we had to, everything you have to water. There was a lot that we got out of all kinds of different gardens. And that was actually, at that same time, I was also developing the early version of the grocery row garden, where I was interplanting perennials and annuals as kind of a bunker of life through the middle of my other gardens. So I had fruit trees mixed in right in between the annuals. I had a bed of moringa trees that I grew sweet potatoes around the base of as well at the same time. So there was a lot of experimenting going on, and testing and trying. When the Back to Eden movie came out, the deep mulching, it's fantastic. Really enjoyed it. Experimented with that too. We put down cardboard in areas, and I got a whole bunch of rotten produce and piled it on the ground and piled wood chips over the top of it and grew through it. We did all kinds of stuff. The last few years after the pandemic, I did straight up row gardening in bare tilled soil. That works too. The best gardening method. As I get older, I realize, even with all the knowledge that I've picked up from books, that I don't have the answer for every situation. And I have more respect for people doing different things that at first glance I might have just simply written off as, no, too much work, or too weird. Some of them really are too weird and too much work and dumb. But there are some things. The Johnson-Su bioreactor. How many of you guys have heard of the Johnson-Su bioreactor? Anybody here? I know we've got a little bit of a delay from when I talk until you guys hear it. There's like a lag. Okay, nope. Pipes composting. I have. Hands up. Katie has not heard of it. Kelly's heard of Johnson-Su. Roy's heard of it. Yep. Land race gardening. There you go. Nope, never heard it. Never heard of it. Okay. Joy of the Garden says I'm doing a modified. A bio detractor. Okay, so a lot of people have heard of it. A lot of people have not heard of it. The Johnson-Su bioreactor is a method of composting that is very specifically set up, where the compost is shredded. It's mixed very carefully. It is not turned, but it has a series of pipes through it. It is a complicated composting method. Somebody was very excited about it and sent me a bunch of information on it. You have to see this. This is incredible. And I looked at it and I was like, I will never do this. This is crazy. Why would you put this much work into composting? I wrote it off. I'm not doing this. It's crazy. It's way too much work. Throw it on the ground. Let nature rot it. Like I wrote in Compost Everything, The Good Guide to Extreme Composting. Throw it on the ground. So I pretty much write it off. Well, then I look it up again. It was written about in a book that I was reading, like The Complete Guide to Restoring Your Soil. And he talks about why they do it this way. What he's trying to do is to get the maximum amount of fungal growth and mycelium. So it's not getting turned. It's actually sitting there for an entire year, if I'm correct on this. I have not done it. I'm not an expert on this method. In order to get a huge amount of fungal life in it, and then it is used not just as a fertilizer like you would use some compost, or just to add a little bit of humus, loosen the soil up, add a little humus, add a little life, a little fertilizer. You grow some pretty tomatoes with that compost. But it is an inoculant for your garden to greatly increase the amount of life in it, because you have done this long-term, very carefully managed fermentation type process where there's a lot of life in it. So, oh, okay. You might want to do that. The Korean natural farming guys. All kinds of stuff. People say, have you heard of Korean natural farming? Yeah, I've got the book. Actually, I kind of have a parody of it in the first Jack Broccoli novel, Turned Earth. The world's first gardening thriller. I wrote a gardening thriller in which a kind of a parody of the Korean natural farming is in it. It's funny. It's complicated. There's all kinds of interesting things that they do. They make these fermented teas and stuff that I'm not really interested in doing it. But they grow some good food. They do all kinds of stuff that we might look at and say, ah, it's nuts. So if you watch my channel, you might see me one year doing a whole bunch of row gardens, like in 2020. End of 2020, early through 2021, I did a lot of row gardens. And then you see I'm doing this grocery row garden thing, which doesn't look like the regular row gardens. There's actually mulch on it. The pads are even mulched now. I'm growing stuff in place for chop and drop, and it's more like a food forest that's arranged in patterns. Whoa, what is he doing? Why is he doing that? I thought that he did the victory garden thing. And then in some previous times, I have done lasagna gardens. I have another lasagna gardening demonstration coming up, because I use that tool for certain things. Then you'll see me doing something on cover crops. Why is he doing this huge cover crop? Oh my goodness, he's got a tractor out there and he's tilling a cover crop under. I thought he was doing this no-till thing with the grocery rows. What is he doing? I thought he was doing lasagna gardening. I thought he was doing double digging like John Jeevons. Crazy. Well, some of you guys kind of got it. The gardening method, the best gardening method, is the one that you do. There's a certain truth to that, but I do think that we should constantly be experimenting and testing. What is the best for our climate? A raised bed in a low rainfall area is not the best. Do a sunken bed instead. Make sure stuff soaks in. Super tight spacing is bad when you have low rainfall. Space them wide. But maybe if you live on the East Coast, you get more rain. Space them closer. Maybe you have a small yard and you've got a garden hose. Space them tightly. Give them lots of fertility. Grow them as close as you can. Grow vertically. All kinds of different methods. I don't want to get hung up on what is the best, and then this is the thing that everyone needs to do if you want to truly be a good gardener. You must follow these 28 principles that I'm going to lay out for you without deviation. I wouldn't worry that much. And I wouldn't pick on my neighbors too much. I'm just glad that they're growing food when they grow food. I like to see it. I like to see a pear tree in a backyard. I like to see a little bit of sweet corn and peas and stuff, because they're learning. They're learning and they're growing. Hey, there may be a day when they can't get malathion, so they don't spray it anymore. Or maybe Maybe I share a little bit about how the pest control works in my gardens, which is I pretty much ignore the pests. I pick a few off here and there. I let the weak plants die. I let the plants cross and interbreed, like somebody mentioned landrace gardening earlier. You know, there's a lot of different methods, and we're really judgmental. I'm judgmental. You're judgmental. We're all kind of judgmental. Some people are better at it than others, you know, not being too judgmental. And it's good to be judgmental to a certain extent. It's like, I don't want to do that in my garden. I don't want that in my food. I want to have the most nutrient-dense, toxin-free food that I could ever have in my entire life. That's what I want. I want raw milk for my kids. I want to stick it to the man. I don't want to eat their soy and their corn and their GenMod, and I don't want their pesticides. I don't want to support them killing bees and turning the soil into dust. I want this world to be a better place, so I'm going to grow in my backyard. But you have to be able to love your neighbors through it too, and you know, encourage them. And so I try not to say this is the way you have to garden. Though, if you want a way to garden, where's that book? Oh, I left it somewhere. Where's my book? If you want a way to garden, Grocery Road Gardening. I love this book. I wrote it. It's great. Buy it on Amazon. But seriously, there are so many different methods, and you'll get different methods. And people have said things like, you know, could somebody just wrote the other day, could you write a book for Southern Africa? No, I can't really. I can get a general idea of what might work, but I might suggest something that doesn't really work with your climate, really doesn't work with your crops or rainfall or whatever else. So it's better. I like to live in a place, and I like to try a bunch of different things. And when you're watching my YouTube channel, you're getting to see me trying things in kind of somewhat real time. You know, this bed spaced like this, and this bed spaced like this, and this one's got deep mulch on it, and this one's got straw on it. This one is just bare dirt. This one has got perennials growing through the middle. This one's interplanted with this. A lot of this is experimentation. I've got 5 different types of yams, or 6 different types of yams, I think, growing. I have 4 or 5 different varieties of sweet potatoes, about 8 different varieties of okra, 14 different types of corn interplanted with each other. I got so many different experiments going on all at the same time. Is any one of them the very best? Probably not. I don't think we can get the very best in this life. But we can certainly play, and we can certainly not destroy the dirt and the soil that we have to the best of our abilities. Like I said, if you have to smash and grab to get food, I'm not going to judge you. But if you could build the soil up over time and use the gardening methods that work for you, try something. If it looks interesting to you, just give it a try and see what happens. Don't necessarily commit a huge amount of ground all to one style unless you really, really know it works. But, you know, don't be afraid to experiment with 5 or 6 different types of gardens, or 5 or 6 different types of beans. Mix all your bean seeds together and plant them down the row and see what happens. Throw a bunch of seeds on the ground. Throw all last year's seeds on the ground and till them in and see what grows. Enjoy yourself. And keep hunting for the best gardening method for you. And don't get discouraged. One of my kids said he didn't want to paint something. The kids were painting beehives. And he says, I don't really want to paint because the other kids say that I can't paint well. The other kids are mean. I'm going to spank them all. Golly, kids picking on each other. But you know what? What I told him was, the fear of man brings a snare. That's a Bible verse. The fear of man brings a snare. You're afraid what people think, so you don't do the thing that you really kind of wanted to do. And I told him, I said, don't worry about it. You're not going to be Leonardo da Vinci, you know, at 10 years old. Just paint and enjoy yourself. And the bees don't care. I mean, I hate that sort of thing. Like, I don't want to do it because I'm afraid that somebody won't like what I'm doing. Yeah, you're not going to get it perfect. It's all right. Grow some food. You're not going to get it. There's no perfect in this life. None of us are perfect. I mean, look at my teeth. How did I get on YouTube with teeth that look like this? They overlap. Hey. Nobody's perfect. So, anyhow. I just was thinking about that today. I was out there putting in a lasagna garden. And I was looking at my row gardens. Then I've got these mounded cassava beds that I was building. All kinds of different stuff going. And I looked at all this patchwork of crazy experiments. And I was like, let's talk about the best gardening method. So I hope that is encouraging to you guys. I don't want you to say, I'm afraid somebody won't like it or whatever. Don't worry about that. And don't worry about failing. Plants die all the time. You've always got next year. I want to thank some of you guys here. I see I've got some super chats, but I didn't want to stop talking your ears off. Let me see here. I see I had an early one that I think I missed. I'm gonna see if I could see them. I don't know why I can't. Sorry, I'm not okay, so yes, thank you, Karen. Thank you, Carolyn. The Gulf Coast Homestead Expo. Yeah, I don't even know when that is. I hope I don't miss it. When is the Gulf Coast Homestead Expo? And thank you for the super chat. Thank you, Tim. Tim says, thank you for all you put into these YouTube presentations. They are excellent. We love it. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Rick says, how do I get a signed copy of 2 books of your new South Florida garden book? I don't know. Maybe I should probably order myself a box and then I can mail them to people. I'm not really good at distribution, I guess. People have said, you know, why don't you mail your books to buy them directly, you know? I have not really figured out an easy way to do that. But if you see me at any event, it's, you know, I will sign anything. So I think I may have missed another super chat. So if I missed you, I'm sorry. I'm going to start answering some questions here. Dulce0403 says, how's the Terra Preta holding up? So far as I can tell, it's good, but I have a feeling that the tree next to it has invaded it and has been eating the fertility out of it. Plants that are growing there look pretty good, but they don't look significantly better than the stuff around them. So I'm wondering if it was one burst of fertility for the year and it's not as great as it was, or if tree roots have just filled the entire area and are choking out what's in there and slowing it down. I better crooked teeth than a crooked heart. I hope I don't have too crooked of a heart, but we're all not as good as we should be. Hey, Melanie. Lecanto, Florida. I'm trying to figure out here. If we bought the book directly from the publisher, that's the thing. I don't know that I want to try and figure out how to mail a whole ton of books. Where do you get cassava to plant? I've got cuttings off of Etsy from various people. I've gotten it off of Grower Jim in Central Florida had some. Cody Cove Farms, that's Josh Jameson. I got some from him. Oh, October 28th to 29th. That's a long ways away. I don't plan that far ahead. Holy moly. Good, I don't have to worry about it. I have missed. I one time, NPR wanted to interview me, and I totally missed the interview. They were going to talk about how to grow pumpkins in Florida. And I totally missed the interview because I forgot about it, and I was just wandering around in the mall in Ocala. Like 2 hours later, I was like, I got this email. They were very not happy about it because it was a live show. I also missed a big interview with somebody a week and a half ago or so because I totally forgot the date. But Bobstar says, I've been given yellow cassava cuttings. Are they good tasting? Yeah, the yellow ones are supposed to be very flavorful. The ones that Josh Jameson had. Riverdale Gardens was just putting wood chips on blueberries with a headlamp. That's awesome. You're a good gardener. Justice Bringer says, what's your best method currently, David? I love the grocery row gardens because I like the excitement of it. I like the anarchy under control aspect of grocery row gardening. And I'm very, very much enjoying combining food forest with annual gardens. Free American 2020 says, what kind of real yams could grow in North Alabama? Dioscorea polystachya, which is probably invasive. The Chinese yam that will grow in North Alabama. Karen says, what do you do for nematodes? I basically just add compost and try not to plant the same stuff in the same areas where it's gotten bad nematodes. Joshua says, David, what's better, sandy or clay soil? That's a good question. I prefer sandy soil because it's what I grew up with. I don't mind working with sandy soil. I like how easy it is to dig. I like how easy it is to pull weeds. But clay soil often holds a lot more nutrients and can be richer. The cow did not give birth yet. Pastor Don says we are all crooked. That is true. Mother Krall says, I have 4 baby grapefruit and 3 baby orange trees growing now. I started from organic fruit trees, thanks to you. Oh, awesome. Good work. Yes, Derek's got it. Dioscorea polystachya. Sean wants to know if I can dance if I want to. No, not even if I wanted to. And I don't think I would leave those friends behind because they would be just like me. The Gnostic Church and Academy of Lord Jesus Christ. Well, that's kind of confusing. Said the super chat and says, just want to say thank you, man, for everything you do. A true Renaissance man. Song of the Siren is a great tune, by the way. Blessings. Thank you very much. If you're not subscribed to the David the Good Tunes channel, we are working on a new music video right now. David the Good Tunes. That's where I put the music. Jessica says, we have a grocery row and regular straight rows and love to use our wheel hoe in between the rows. I love my wheel hoe, too. Here Now Only says, hello from Deerfield Beach, Broward County. Hey, my hometown. Fort Lauderdale's my hometown. Broward County. Kind of wish I was down there so I could visit. Yep, the Paddock Mall, Melanie. Probably for the best to miss the NPR interview. I haven't heard much worth listening to on NPR, and it's so boring.
Coming up later today, we discuss the current economic situation and how it affects single mothers in the Sudan. After that, an exciting musical presentation from Latvia's first and only underwater accordion player. This is NPR.
This is listener-supported radio, plus lots of money from the government. Kenshin says, I'm growing hydroponic veggies and growing soilless cocoa perlite and also in the soil. Doing all three. Yeah. Keep it up. Try everything. What is the technique to add stuff like kelp meal, azomite, and fertilizer to the soil in a grow bag? I've never grown before. Just don't add too much of, fertilizer because you could burn it. But kelp meal and azomite, just put a handful of each in there, you'll be fine. Acres Quarter Acre says, I overplanted cassava this year. Hope to have cuttings available to ship next year. Good idea. Thank you, Tiffany. I don't have the chicken slaughtering video out yet. But thank you for joining. I'm waiting on the last segment where my wife makes stock out of chicken feet. And I have not produced it yet. Hey, Bobbert. Welcome. I'm going to call it tonight because the pollen allergies are really catching up with me. And I don't have a box of tissues in my office. I don't know that I should like blow my nose on a sock or something because that's really gross. So I should probably just call it. Never mind, I'm going to blow my nose on a sock. Just a second. There's really a time window associated with blowing your nose that you have to hit. If you don't hit it, I'm sorry, that was terrible. This is a real channel. So, anyhow, the pollen has been killing me lately, guys. Yeah, it's probiotic stock. Sorry, guys. It's terrible. Pollen, man. It's just so messed up. I broke down and got a some Zyrtec. I think that's what it was, or Claritin or something. I think it was Zyrtec. Loratadine. I told my wife, I was like, I can't go to church like this. My eyes are red. My nose is running. I'm like losing it. I'm feeling so sick. And it was before church on Sunday. I said, but I want to go to church. I said, could you just run out of the dollar store and get me something? And so she gets me these things. Now, normally with Zyrtec, I would take a half of them because I feel like I'm gonna like float over myself. I don't do well with medications like that. And so, and I tried raw honey. Before you get on me about the raw honey, yes, I've had raw honey. This is not a bad pollen season for me. There were times where I could barely go outside. Anyhow, she goes out and she brings me stuff. She says, I got these. They're the gel cap types because they're more readily available. So like you can, they digest faster or something. So I'm like, I don't know that I can cut one of those in half like I normally would do. So I just took the whole thing. And I went to church. And it was kind of like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, where it's like I'm walking through the doors of church and I'm so weirdly baked. It feels like I walk in and then there's like me watching myself walk in from, and I'm like singing the songs and I'm like, I turn my head and it feels like my head turns after I turn my head. I haven't taken any more, so I've just been suffering with it. I can't take it. I don't like that feeling. Whew. I tell you, I didn't have problems with pollen allergies down in the tropics. That was something I loved about the tropics. No seasonal allergies. Of course, I always was running the risk of getting chopped into pieces with machetes, but no seasonal allergies. It doesn't sound like an allergy pill. I can't take Benadryl or anything. I feel terrible. Anyhow. Karen says I'm practically scratching my eyeballs out because they itch so bad. I know that feeling. Man alive. No boosters for me, man. Anyhow, I am going to, I just got some tropical fevers in the tropics, Phil. I got some weird stuff. I think I had Zika. I might have had dengue. Pretty sure I had chikungunya. It's 9 o'clock here. Yeah, colloidal silver doesn't really leave your body. That's what I've heard too. It turns you blue over time. But it's cool. Anyhow, y'all have a great night. I'm going to call it before I start sneezing. I really feel like it's coming in. So, God bless. The best gardening method is the one that you're doing that hopefully doesn't destroy God's earth. Catch you next time. Until then, may your thumbs always be green.